Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Wednesday. Unusual for me to have some guests on, but I've got the absolutely brilliant number one reviewer, Rampant Line Beer Reviews. Please introduce yourself.
I don't know if I'd call myself the number one reviewer, but it's quite funny to be called that. But no, thank you firstly, Thomas, thank you for having me. And I'm James Marshall, Rampant Lion Reviews. That's me. That's it.
Okay, I suppose, when did you start your channel? I suppose we did.
I actually remember the exact date. It was the first video published on the 31st of July, 2013. This was the first video that I published.
Can I ask you why you started it, or what was behind it?
It was kind of two things. I actually thought at the time that I had a really unique idea of making beer videos and talking about the flavors of the beer and stuff. So I did think at that time genuinely that I had a unique idea. And it was only when I started that I met other beer tubers and realized, there was already a quite small community that was doing it. And since then, obviously, it's grown a hell of a lot. But the other thing was I studied in Aberdeen, and you had Brewdog just starting up at that time, and they'd been going for a year or two before that. And so I was trying all of these beers, and I was just like, how are you supposed to remember what any of these things taste like? So I thought, well, I want some way to document it. And at that time, I don't think Untapped was really a thing. At least I didn't know about it. So I thought, well, I'll make videos about it. And that's a good way to document the beers that you're trying. So, yeah. Is it?
You can see your stats on the chapter there. That's what I could find for you if you can see them there. I think it's 3,300 uploads, over 2.6 million views.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know it was that many views. That's crazy.
Yeah, the one thing I found really interesting was looking that you're down as a US channel.
Ah, right. No, because the reason behind that was when I went to NASA camp when I was this will kind of answer the sort of a little bit of the history of the channel. So when I was 16, I think it was, I applied and got accepted to go to NASA camp in the States. And so I started the channel. The original name of the channel, and you'll see it in some of these very early videos, was Goddard Radio Moscow. And that came about because I was in at the NASA camp thing. I was in Team Goddard, and then when I was over there, I thought it was funny because the American stuff we were getting shown was all about how bad the Russian space program was. So myself and one of the other guys, we got onto the tannoy in this place, and we did Radio Moscow. We just put on the Russian accents. The Russian spaceship fall over and go bang. We just did stuff like that, and then we made videos of this, on the YouTube. And I don't think I've still got the files for those. I don't think we ever uploaded those. But that was the original channel name, was Goddard Radio Moscow. And of course, when I was starting beer stuff, I still had this. So, and it wasn't until later that I changed the name of the channel. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. It looked unusual. I said, well, you're living in the US for some time. I just kind of wondered.
No, it was set as the US because I think when I made that, I think I was still in the US actually when I made that channel just after I did the NASA camp. So I think that might have been automatic. I don't know if I can change that actually, because if I probably should, yeah.
Yeah, and the type of channel was interesting. It was down as people. I was wondering why it wasn't something different.
I think it's changed once or twice. I think I put it as like a blog or something, but I think people in blogs, but there wasn't a food and drink category, if I remember rightly. I don't know if there is now.
There is not. The sections for that is very poor. Like there's no hobby section even.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's quite restrictive in that way. So people in blogs seemed the most logical one, I think.
Yeah. Suppose Worst and best comment then.
Oh, I really couldn't. See, to be honest, I really couldn't tell you. I actually couldn't tell you. It's I've got there's a few things when I'm asked about comments. There's a few things that kind of spring to mind, and one of the ones that was really funny in the early days was you used to get a lot of Germans who would get very angry if you didn't use the right type of glassware to drink the beers. That was
Right.
always something. You used to get some Germans used to get very, very angry at that because I like to use my tulip glass, and they used to say, "Oh, it's the wrong type of glass." And you're like, "Well, the tulip glass is the best all-round one." Um, so that I always found that funny that the Germans got so worked up about the glassware because, as I say, the tulip glass works for pretty much every style. That's why I like to use it.
Yeah.
Although I do, in fairness, I do use my tankards for lagers when I get the chance, when I remember. So yeah, that was one. Um, it's quite funny on one of my videos, which is Castlemaine 4X Lager. I get a lot of comments from like Indians and Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, and they just put lots of X's on it. And the reason that they do that is because I think if you put XXXX into YouTube, it comes up with all this Indian like Kama Sutra stuff. It's really weird. So that's probably those are two comments that really stick to mind because you just get these Indian guys that just hold the X key down and comment that, and you're just like, okay.
It's probably a cultural insult we don't understand, maybe, kind of, is it?
Probably, yeah, probably. But no,
Um,
most of the comments are very positive and things like
is
that.
there
So
one comment we say that if you can pick out that was good, that picked you up, or you had a smile or something like that? Like that. Is there any comment that?
oh, there's been a few. Honestly, it's really difficult to.
Oh, well,
It's
if you
really
don't want to pinpoint one comment, okay.
it's
I
more that I
suppose the
just
next
can't.
thing is,
It's more that I can't remember to be honest. Yeah,
do you know what your number one video is at the moment?
it's that Castlemaine 4X one. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is. It's
yeah.
at it's a 1.9. Here we go. I think I have it here somewhere. There we go. 1.9 million.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
That's
is
the yeah.
pretty good. What about the
Yeah.
beer community then? I think there's a group of views there, kind of Harry, Thomas, Mersey, Rob, who are pretty one kind of group there. Would you kind of agree with that? Kind of
Um,
that
I
kind of
think
you don't do lives together.
um, yeah. I mean, it's
Because
yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of solo people out there. Like I did the UK Ireland reviewers, I got 70 or 80 people, but there's a good kind of 10 people that you all kind of do lives together. You're on each other's channels.
yeah. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who I find that I've never heard of before, actually. I mean, I know in Scotland there's Don's beer reviews, there's Danny
Yeah.
McFadden, who started before me as well. And then there's also another guy, Geordie, who's doing stuff. And there was another one as well called Scottish Lad Reviews, I'm sure, was his channel. Um, so there are others out there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's Rob was the one I remember who I'm pretty sure Rob was the one who started all of these live streams. Rob was the one that kind of pushed that back in, like 2013, 2014 and things.
Mm.
And I didn't join in initially because at that time I was just, when Rob started it, I'm sure it was just when it turned 2014 and I was just going to Germany. So I couldn't get the beers that he wanted to review. So I wasn't able to take part until later,
Yeah.
So that it was Rob that really started all of the lives off, and then through that, I met Harry and I met Stuart Pickard as well. Peter, I can't remember when Peter came into it, but I met Peter in Germany. I met Peter in Regensburg when he was out there. And Harry, I've met twice in person. I met, well, no, 3 times, I think, actually. Twice or 3 times I've met Harry in person. And Jake, I've never met in person. Craig, Kent Beer Reviews, I've met Craig once in Manchester. And Adam is quite new. Adam is quite new to the scene, but he mainly does streams and things. But yeah, he doesn't make so much of his own content, but he's sent a few boxes around, and he's ridiculously generous. He doesn't want you to buy him a beer, but he'll buy everything for you. And yeah, Thomas, I kind of randomly found Thomas's channel, and Thomas and I have become really quite close friends over the last year, 2 years, I would say. That Thomas and I get on really, really well, and I've been to visit Thomas in the Netherlands, actually. So, yeah, I don't know if that kind of gives you what you were looking for with.
Yeah, that's kind of
with
the community. I suppose next, what do you think of the kind of the UK scene on the craft compared to Sweden, let's say?
It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to say because I haven't spent that much time in the UK over the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I would say that I don't know. I mean, the English beer scene, it's very different. I'd say it's quite different from the Scottish beer scene as well in some ways. Because obviously we only get a few of the English breweries in Scotland. You'll get the bigger guy, the well-known ones. You'll get like North. Actually, you'll get like North, Cloudwater, Track. You'll get these ones. So yeah, I'm not so familiar with the English breweries, but when it comes to Swedish, and I'm quite familiar with the Danish scene as well. I'd say that the scene in Sweden is actually considerably stronger than the scene in Scotland, and a lot of that is because of the home brewing culture that you have in Sweden. I mean, because the alcohol laws have been so strict, so many people started home brewing, and now you're at a point with all the government grants and things for small businesses. So many of these little breweries, these home brewers are starting to brew beers and make side businesses and stuff like this. So the standard of beer in Sweden, I would say, is very, very high. Like you can find among these really, really small breweries, you can find like some really, really good beers from really random places. There's about 800 breweries in Sweden, and when you consider that Sweden's 10 million people, I think that's really impressive. Actually, I think that must be one of the highest rates of commercial breweries in the world, I would think.
Yeah, because there's only around 100 in Ireland, so that's the island of Ireland, like, so you compare that, like, so
because that's about 6 million, 6.2 million, something like that.
There's 6 million in Ireland, and there's 2 in the north, I think. So it's about 8 million people.
Ah, okay. I thought the Republic was only about 4.5 or 5 or something. Yeah. All right. Yeah. No. So that makes sense because in Scotland, I don't know how many breweries there are in Scotland, but we're about 5.5 million.
Yeah.
And I think it's nowhere near. And if you consider the amount of breweries that you could consider, really top class and things like that, I mean, in Scotland, there's a couple that come to mind, Holy Goat, Overtone, Vault City, Dead End Brew Machine, Tempest, Fierce do some, really good dark stuff. Cromarty were always pretty solid as well. There's probably a few that just aren't coming to mind just now, but then I think of the ones in Sweden. There's a lot more I could name in Sweden that are the same level, if not better than those ones.
So then, where would you recommend for someone to go in Sweden for, let's say, a beer holiday? If they want to go see some small, really good breweries?
Gothenburg. Gothenburg's the Swedish beer capital. Yeah, but Copenhagen is, obviously it's not Sweden, you asked about Sweden, but Copenhagen for me is one of the best beer cities in the world. There's some really, really good stuff in Copenhagen's probably, if you're talking about craft beer in Europe, I would go as far as saying that Copenhagen is probably the best that I've come across so far.
Okay. Let's see. What's it? I suppose then, what was the kind of price of beer then in Sweden? Is it like it's meant to be expensive? Would you agree, or what kind of would the average?
It's an odd one. It's an odd one actually, because if you go to Systembolaget, which is those are the state-owned alcohol shops.
Yeah.
You're talking, to buy an IPA. So if we're talking, I'm thinking for comparison, let's just say you get a Steak Beer, it's 6.5% IPA. So compare that to, Whiplash or Old Brother or something like that.
Yeah.
You guys. I would pay about 50 Swedish kroner, which is about €5 for a can.
Which is pretty okay.
Yeah, so I think it's cheaper. Like the to buy the Swedish beers, the Steak Beer, the Spikes, and so on and things. Those are actually a lot cheaper to buy over there in the shops than they are in Scotland. It's cheaper to buy the craft beer from the shop, but if you go out to the pub, it's definitely more expensive. You're talking. I always go to Malmö Brewing Company or to Højde Brewery, and you'll pay about 80. Yeah, you'll pay about 80 kroners or something like that for a 400 milliliter thing. So that's about €8 for a 400 ml.
Hi, Marcy. How you doing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Adam's here.
Yeah. Favorite style of beer then?
My favorite what? Sorry.
Favorite style of beer?
Oh, that's hard actually. I couldn't pick one, but if I really had to. If I really, really had to, and it's quite obscure, it would be a Rauch Doppelbock. Rauch Doppelbock would be the one that I would probably say would be my absolute favourite. But if we're talking something a little bit more run-of-the-mill, it would have to be a good Helles, like a German Helles, Czech Svetli, or a West Coast, probably a West Coast double IPA. Like sort of Sierra Nevada, Torpedo, that kind of thing. The big oily caramelly one with the bitterness.
I kind of think you said the last couple times that you don't actually drink beer, only for reviews. So how much beer do you drink at the moment, or is it just reviews?
I mean, when I come home to Scotland, I quite like, I like to have a beer, I like to have a Caesar, a Williams Brothers Caesar Augustus, or an Old Jock, or a Harvest and Chihuahua. I like to have, sometimes if I see those on tap at the pub, I'll drink one of those.
Yeah.
But otherwise, unless it's, visiting a brewery or it's a stag do or something like that, you kind of have to do it there. Otherwise, I don't drink at all. But when it comes to the beers, I usually, quite often in Sweden, I would tend to fill one a day. I used to do it one a day. Like I would like to drink my beer in the evening. I would drink one a day. Although when I had such a stockpile, I was doing two a day just to try and get rid of some of the stuff. But since I've been back in Scotland, I've been drinking, maybe every 2-3 days and just doing like 2 or 3 of them, sitting down and doing a few, because I share them with my dad. It's quite nice here. I can drink half the can and give him the other half. So I quite like that. I'm more of a taster than a sessioner, if that makes sense. I like tasting lots of different stuff. But if you in fairness, if you put some sort of lager in front of me though, and it's a half litre, that's gone. the Helles lager cans are just gone.
And what does your dad think of the beers? Is he into trying different beers, or is he old school?
He quite likes trying the different stuff and learning about it. He tries to take the piss, and I just take the piss back. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, he tries to come up and say that he'll take a sip and just do cinnamon, and I'm just like, no. He'll just do something like that. It's just nuts.
Yeah. I suppose next is favorite brewery.
Oh no, I don't like that question. There's too many good beers. I really don't like that question.
Okay, well, we'll see if you can only.
If I absolutely had to choose, it would have to be Schlenkerla. It would have to be Schlenkerla. But if you were to ask me what's a beer that you could drink all day, it would be Pilsner Urquell.
Okay. Have you been to Ireland then? I suppose the next question.
To Ireland, yeah, I've been to Ireland a couple of times, and my cousin actually, his girlfriend is from Dublin, so we probably will. I'll probably go over with them at some point, again quite soon. So I actually wanted to go to the White Hag Festival, or try and time it with a beer festival, take the car across and just drive around and see everything. You know, you've got
Yeah,
to.
well,
I want to go and see the Father Ted house. I need to figure out where it is. And it's
yeah,
more.
well, if you ask people up around there, they'll tell you where it is. Yeah, well, the White Hag Festival the last 2 years has been online, so it's been a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good festival. I haven't been myself now, but maybe sometime I will get to it. Yeah, they get some good beers into it.
Yeah. Whereabouts in Ireland are you?
I'm southeast, so I would be kind of about 2 hours from Dublin, about 2 hours from Cork. I'm down the bottom.
Okay.
So one beer style to abolish.
Oh. It would probably be the English bitter. I just don't get that. Just do not like English bitters. I don't see the point in them. For me, English beer is all about the porters and the stouts and stuff like this, but English bitters, no, don't like them. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Nah, I think English bitters are the only ones that I just do not like. They just, to me, a lot of them just taste like dirty water. It's like, nah. Especially like if you put them on cask, I'm just like, nah. No, I just don't like English bitters or ESB.
Is there any cask in Sweden then?
Not really. Nah, cask doesn't really exist that much. It's oddly enough, actually, there's a brewery I know called Nynäshamns Own Brewery, and they're from, I forget if they're south of Stockholm, but they were the very first brewery in Sweden. They do a couple of cask beers. And actually, one of the few English bitters that I had that I've liked came from them. So, yeah, it was, there's a little bit of cask, but it's very, very rare to find it. It's all keg, pretty much. And I think that's the thing is I got into beer on the German stuff. So I'm used to keg rather than cask.
And would most of the pubs or bars in Sweden be privately owned, or would it be state owned, or would they be chained?
They're pretty much all private, yeah. Pretty much all private. Small. A lot of them are small businesses. You have got some big boys in there, but most of them, the vast majority of them, are small businesses.
Yeah, it's the same here. Most of them are privately owned. It's just wondering, cause I hear some like the English people going on where they're owned by the chains, kind of, which just didn't. I couldn't comprehend it really, like compared to Ireland, how they're. I suppose I don't know if you want to talk about this. What's the day job?
The day job is data analysis and programming, and I do a little bit of. I used to be a teacher, so I do a little bit of like science tuition, and also a wee bit of English tuition as well. Like, teaching Japanese and Taiwanese and Korean engineers and scientists and stuff. Teaching them scientific English, because I did my TESOL diploma. I did that. So I do that just to kind of keep the teaching brain a bit fresh, if you like. So it's a good little bit of extra money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And it's quite nice. I quite like being flexible and things like that, because it means I can go back and forth between here. I can go out to Japan and so on. It means I can kind of do as I like, and that's good. I quite like, can film beer reviews all over the world, so why not?
Okay. First beer.
The first beer that I tried.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was a wee boy my dad had this beer at a pub in Alva called the Cross Keys. And I think I was only about 12 or something like that. I just decided I was going to have a taste of my dad's beer. So I just grabbed it and drank it. I was like, ugh, it's stinking. And it was I don't know what the brewery was, but it was called Millennium Ale. So yeah, it was Millennium. I must have been younger than that then. That was 99. I would have been about 8 or something, actually. So I do remember that. But the first beer I would have drank properly would have been Schlenkerla. And that was my German flatmate in Aberdeen that introduced me to that. Because I was never really into, when I went to university, I was never really into drinking alcohol. And actually, I never really was. I liked a little bit of rum, but I wasn't a big drinker. I wasn't really at all, and I'm still not a big drinker. My parents don't really drink very much, to be honest. My dad likes, they liked a whiskey, and my dad likes tasting the beers because I do it. So, yeah.
Okay. Sorry about this. Yeah. So did you try your hand at homebrewing then? Because you say it's kind of big in Sweden. Have you tried it yourself, or?
I've done, yeah. My landlord in Sweden actually home brews quite regularly, so I've brewed a few beers with him and drawn up some recipes and so on. But yeah, I did it a few times, but I wasn't that into it. I wasn't really so into it actually.
Okay.
Because it was just, I mean, I wrote my master's thesis in organic chemistry, and homebrewing, for me, it's kind of a similar. You're designing recipes and stuff, but it's a very similar process, and it's doing the same thing over and over and over again. I found after a point it just got a little bit monotonous, and it was repeat, 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 and I was just like, I just kind of got bored of it, if that makes sense. As much as I like tasting beer, I wasn't the greatest fan of brewing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a weird question now, but we'll try it. What makes you happy or sad?
Wake up happy or sad? I mean, probably the thing that makes me happiest is probably music. Actually, I love music. Just listening to music, playing music, all that. That probably makes me happiest. Actually, sad. I guess it's probably just all the shite that I've been going through with my little man and his mother. But we won't get into that too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your earliest memory?
Oof. I'm trying to think now. I remember when I was about 3 or 4, and my dad was uh, a superintendent in the police, so I don't know what that would be in the guards, right enough. But he, one of his friends, and I think my dad was actually his probationer when my dad joined the police. Bill was his probationer, but we used to go and visit Bill all the time, and Bill was a dog handler. So Bill had the German Shepherds. He had all these German Shepherds. And I remember when I was about 3 or 4, I can still remember this. The dog, we went into the house and the dog barked at me. So I hit the dog in the face with my teddy bear. And the dog just wouldn't come near me for the rest of the dog wouldn't come near me for the rest of the time I was there. So I remember that, and I'm always reminded of that. I think that dog, I forget if that was Prince or Freya. I think it might have been Freya, because she was one of the few female German Shepherds that was used in the police. And so, yeah, she wouldn't come near me after I hit her in the face with my teddy bear. But now I love German Shepherds. It's just, I just was always reminded of that story. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry for the next question. You could have answered it before, but yeah, most important person in your life at the moment. You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
It would probably be the little man, but yeah, as I say, I'm not too comfortable talking about that at the moment because that's just a nightmare. But yeah, it would be my little son. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When's the last time you cried?
Probably about the same, not too long ago, and again over the same issue. As I say, little man is just a very sore
Yeah,
topic.
well, I don't mean they're all pre-written down questions. I'm sorry if they're coming this way.
Mm.
Have you been arrested?
No, not yet. That's the key word, yet. I got threatened. It was quite funny at school in my 6th year of high school. My friend and I, my best pal and I, got suspended for making flamethrowers and fireballs. In the chemistry lab. Just
Yeah.
we were doing stuff like filling balloons with gas and lighting it on fire, and making red hot coins and throwing them at each other and stuff. I've still got a burn mark on my leg somewhere from where my friend, we heated up the 2 pence coin and the Bunsen burner, the big copper one.
Oh, yeah,
flung
yeah.
those, till it was almost white hot, and flung them across the room at each other. Just doing absolutely mental stuff like that. But of course, one day we got caught doing this, and teacher just comes in, and there's this huge big fireball just comes up towards the ceiling, and we got we got slap on the wrist for this, and then the rector of the school was threatening to call the police on us and things, because we wouldn't say what we'd done and what else we'd done. And I still remember that, because my dad is obviously, my dad was a superintendent and was a lawyer as well. And then it was quite funny. I remember him going into school and saying, yeah, they've got a legal right not to incriminate themselves, because they were threatening us with police and everything. So that's probably the closest I've got. But my dad tells me there was no damage, there was no criminal damage. So yeah, there was nothing the police could do. They were just trying to threaten us and stuff and scare us.
Okay.
That's the closest.
What's your philosophy in life then?
Yeah. I guess, I don't know if I've got a particular philosophy, if you like. I can tell you what sort of things I value and kind of how I think and stuff like this.
Yeah.
I would say I value knowledge, like I value information and things. I think that kind of comes across in a lot of the videos and stuff and the research that I do. I love learning about places and things. And I think that's something that I get from my dad, actually. My dad I was always encouraged to, read about things, learn the facts, and do this sort of thing. So that's probably me. I value information a lot. And I would say that I'm quite a dutiful person. I always try to do the right thing.
Okay.
How long
does it take you to get the information for a video then? How long would you be researching?
That varies from video to video, because you find, what you say, you get it depends. Sometimes it varies. For example, I've been to get some of the Korean stuff that I did was a nightmare, because I had no idea about Korean. So you're trying to find English blogs and find the name of the owners and stuff, and then put that into Korean and search it, and the brewery's name and so on. So it just varies, but it can take you an hour or two to compile the notes for the videos. But then if you do it once, you can do more beers from the same brewery. And sometimes I just email the brewery and ask them. So I had to do that with a few of the Brazilian ones that I reviewed recently, and some of the Irish breweries, actually, I couldn't find any newspaper articles or blogs. So it varies. But if it's completely my work, then probably, an hour or two, something like that, if I'm doing it all myself.
Have you ever gotten it wrong? Have some brewery come back to you and say you've gotten it wrong, or someone pointed out that you've got something wrong in it?
There was one, actually, and it was the Orkney brewery. No. It's one of the Scottish breweries. Which one was it? It might have been the Orkney brewery. I want to say the Orkney brewery.
Okay.
And for some reason, I had it down that the guy who started this brewery had been in the metal fabrication business. Like, he'd had a scrapyard and was in metal fabrication. Yeah. And then they got into the hotel business, and this was wrong. So the owner came back to me and said, no, we were never involved in the steel fabrication thing. It's the brewery building was a former steel fabricator premises. We weren't involved in that. So I've had things like that where breweries have corrected me and stuff. So yeah, I have had that. I have had that sometimes. Sometimes you can get rogue information and you find different things in different places. So you're trying to piece it together and see, what stuff fits where. So yeah, you get things like that.
Yeah. Sorry. What makes you laugh?
Oof. Lots of things. I'm trying. I quite like. I like Scottish and good old Scottish and Irish comedy. I do enjoy some of that. Stupid videos as well. I love Slav memes. Like when you go and see some of these, Slav meme videos on YouTube, those crack me up. Driving in Russia is another one I like. So yeah, things like that just they crack me up. But my friend and I, we just send random videos to each other over Facebook and things like that. So there's lots of really random stuff that does it as well. But I quite like clever humor. I quite like that sort of thing. Like Blackadder and stuff like that as well. I always really enjoy those kind of things. Yeah.
Okay. What is the most? This is an unusual question again. Is there anything that you'd be ashamed to explain that you looked up on the internet? Is there anything you looked up on the internet that's kind of really weird?
There's probably been lots. My YouTube. You should see my YouTube recommended. Some of the stuff that comes out of there is funny. It's like Darth Vader playing bagpipes, riding a unicycle. You get stuff like this. Elmo's death metal song. That's another one. I like that. My YouTube recommended is ridiculous, but something I'm ashamed to have looked at.
Let's go with YouTube because YouTube is very PC. It's kind of PC. What's not kind of? Is there anything not PC that you've looked up when you were younger and you were looking for things?
I think every young lad does a little bit of RedTube or Pornhub or something like that. So yeah, probably that.
Okay.
Other than that, not really. My mum's colleague at her work used to try and get me to look at rotten.com, and it was people getting chopped up by helicopters and hit by cranes and all of this sort of things. But so that's probably one of the weirdest ones I've looked up, was because they told me my mum's colleagues thought to tell me about rotten.com. I don't know if that website still exists.
Oh, it no probably idea. Does. As it sounds, it should be very popular. Have you overcome any bad habits?
I used to bite my nails a lot. But I didn't. But when I started playing guitar, I stopped that.
And what makes you weird?
Oh, I've got a very contextual memory. Like someone can talk to me about something and they can say like one or two words and I'm like, oh, and stuff comes flooding back to me. Like it's just like, it's like that. So I can remember stuff, like a hell of a lot of stuff about a really random topic at a really random time. So that's probably the weirdest thing. That is probably the weirdest thing about me. Like I'll remember something that I've read like 10 years ago or something like this, and it's still, someone says something and it comes out here. It's really weird, actually. That's probably the weirdest thing I would say that I can think of at the moment.
Okay. How many times do you check yourself in the mirror a day?
I don't really do it, just probably before I go out, just to make sure that I actually look clean. Yeah, no, that's about it.
No.
Just maybe once or twice a day. Yeah.
Last time you sung to yourself?
Oh, I'm obsessed at the moment. I'm obsessed with the new Halloween song, which is called Skyfall. I love, I'm really into power metal and different types of metal. So I'm obsessed with that song, Skyfall, at the moment. So I keep singing that to myself. To someone else, I thought, I was winding up my sister the other day because when we used to drop my sister off at school, my dad he liked listening to all the old Scottish folk music. And when she used to get out of the car at school, he used to whack the volume up. So it was really loud as she got out the car. So I was singing one of the Corries songs to my sister the other day and just winding her up. And so that's probably the last time I sung to somebody else. Yeah.
Okay. Do you listen to other people's advice?
Okay. Quite often, yeah. Like I kind of try. For me, I quite like to understand why people think that way. If someone says something, I'm kind of like, right, what's your basis for that? So sometimes, if I can understand why they advise something, then quite often, yeah. But if I can't understand why they come to what the basis of them saying something is, I tend maybe not to pay as much attention to that. But yeah.
Okay. First paycheck. I
Slurp. My first paycheck. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I never really got a check. I just got paid cash in hand.
Yeah. Was it your first pay then?
My first pay was when I was working as a music teacher. I taught guitar and drums and bass and stuff in a little shop in Alloa. And I remember that I was about 15, yeah, I was 15. I was teaching folk guitar and drums and things like that when I was 15, so it was good. Or maybe
Can
16.
I ask you, what do you spend your first paycheck on then? Your first real paycheck on?
As in like when I had like a salaried job.
Yeah. Did you go out and splurge on something really nice or expensive or?
Not really, actually. I invested it. I paid my bills, I kept a little bit aside, and then I put it in investment funds. Because I didn't need anything, so yeah, I invested it actually.
Okay.
Put it in an investment fund. But well, actually, no, that might be a lie. That might have been the second one. I actually think I bought a flight to Japan. I think I bought another flight to Japan. So
you've never had instant buyer's remorse for buying something really expensive?
I mean, not really. I'm not a big.
But have you ever bought, let's say, a really hyped up beer, super expensive, and then thought, why did I bother buying this? I know it's going to be crap.
Quite recently, actually, I had one from Frau Gruber in Germany, and I think I paid like 180 kroner for it. And I was like, I tried it. I was like, that's definitely not worth it. That was definitely not worth it. So yeah, but I mean, when we're talking about other things, not really. I actually, I don't spend a lot of. I don't actually spend a lot of money, to be honest. I earn good money, but I don't really spend. I'm actually very, very good at saving and stuff like that. And I don't need anything. I don't really need anything.
You'll be sitting on a beach when you're 50, retired, yeah, with a cocktail in your hand.
Oh, hopefully. Hopefully. I mean, the thing is, I'd never want to retire fully. My dad's 70 and still works. I'd be bored if I retired fully, to be quite honest with you.
Okay. But, what's your Halloween costume then this year then? What are you dressing up as?
That's a good question, actually, because it's coming up soon. I hadn't thought about it. I maybe just go as a Viking. It's quite easy to do that. I'm quite lazy like that. I've never been a great one for. I've never really been a great one for dressing up. Yeah, I never really did that because it was when I was younger. because my parents were police, they were never keen on the kind of trick or treating thing. So my sister and I never ever did that. And so we never. I don't think either my sister or I, we were never really into, dressing up for Halloween and things, to be honest with you. I only ever did it when I was in the Air Cadets. We used to have Halloween parties, and that was probably the first time. So when I was like 13 to about 17, 18, I did it. But yeah, I've not done it in the last years, no.
Have you ever tried any weird meats? You've travelled a bit. What kind of weird meats have you tried?
I've tried puffin in Iceland. That was quite interesting. It was actually quite nice. I've tried alligator. Didn't like that. It tasted like fish. It was like nah. Emu was good. I did try emu. Kangaroo I tried quite a lot. I actually quite liked kangaroo. Yeah. I've had things like, elk and moose and stuff like this. I have had that a few times. And I've had horse as well, actually. I did have horse once.
I think everyone's eaten horse, but they just don't know it.
That's at Tesco's, yeah. So yeah, no, I've had horse, but that actually, when I did eat horse, I knew it was horse because it was in Japan. I want to say Kagoshima. I want to say that was in Kagoshima in Japan. We had a little bit of horse because it was this meat. It was this sort of breaded horse meatball thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any. Don't know if there's any other ones because I don't eat fish. I've never liked fish. It gives me a bad stomach, so I've never tried any like unusual fish or anything like this.
No, I'm the same with fish. No, I can't have it. It just.
I don't like it. I don't see the attraction to it, I have to say. Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to answer this one. You said you're good at money, but how much money do you have in your bank account right now? I think I checked mine before we went on. I had €27.
Just in my current account.
Yeah.
I think probably about 300, 350, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah. So average.
But yeah, no, yeah, I think current because I've got 3 current accounts. So I think I've got nothing in this. I think I've got nothing in the Scottish one. About €350 in the Swedish one, and I think nothing in the Australian one. But there's a lot of stuff sitting in other places, should we say?
Do you have any plans to change in the future? Next 5 years, what's going to happen in your life?
Who knows? Actually, that's one of the things.
Because you're now a Swedish citizen.
Yeah, I might change. I'm probably going to change jobs. I think next summer,
Okay.
And I'll start looking to see what's available, and where is the other thing. I'm not 100% sure because I think long term I want to stay in Sweden, but I quite like the idea of having a remote job and then I can live sometime in Sweden, sometime in Scotland, and sometime in Japan. And little man is in Japan, obviously, so I probably spend a significant amount of time over there because I can get 6 months on the British passport. You can stay out there for 6 months at a time just as a tourist. So we'll see. But yeah, no, I'll probably be going back and forth to lots of different places. Enjoying myself, if you like, and spending time with a little man. But yeah, as I say, the next thing will be a job change, I think, next year. To try and move to something that's I have been working remotely essentially over the last while, but yeah, no, I feel I need to change and maybe move into something a bit more financy based, numerical, if you like. So that'll be the next one in 5 years. Who knows? I just kind of, to me, I don't like work. I just like to. For me, working is a means to an end. It's not the center of everything, if you like.
First crush.
That would have been when I was in like primary one or something. I remember there was a girl who lived across the road, and oddly, her dad was a police officer as well. Her name, I think, was her name Emma Nicholson. I remember that. Yeah, I've never heard. I don't know what or whatever she's doing, but that was in like primary one. So I remember that. I do remember that.
Okay, where's celebrity crush then?
I do like. I mean, as much as I always joke about shaking it like Beyonce, I do like Beyonce. She's nice. And her name's Scarlett Johansson. I quite like her as well. Yeah.
Okay, two. Big one. Are you religious? Do you believe in God?
That's a funny one. I'm pretty much as atheist as you're going to get. I was christened. I was actually christened when I was younger as Church of Scotland, but I just used to ask even at a young age, I used to ask really awkward questions. So I wasn't allowed to go to, I think I was told not to go to Sunday school because I just didn't accept anything that they told me. And yeah, no, it was just, I never liked religion, to be honest, at all. So that was never a thing. So I'm pretty much as atheist as you're going to get. And especially when you've studied physics. I mean, I studied astrophysics, and you're looking at stars that are, 13 billion years old. You're just like, to me, the religions. I think that the Eastern religions are a bit more acceptable, almost like their philosophy is learn from those that have come before you and respect nature. That's something I could get on board with, and they don't let it take over their lives. But for me, talking about Abrahamic religions is just they want to control your life. They're very judgmental, and I don't like the way they discriminate against gay people and women. I really don't like that, because I think we should be able to live our lives as we see fit, as long as you don't hurt anybody else. So I like to tell, when I get the Jehovah people, and I like to tell them I'm a born again Satanist. I love doing that because you just see their face drop. I love doing that. It's just that cracks me up. So, are you religious? Definitely not.
Okay, Slurpee has a question. I think a favorite pub.
Oh, right. So in Scotland, it would be the Moorings Bar, but it's now called Krakatoa in Aberdeen. I love that place. In Sweden, it would be Malmö Brewing Company. I love going there. I'm trying to think, is there any other one that stands out to me? Japan, I quite liked. There's craft beer base in Japan. There's a nice little one in Osaka. I like that. Yeah, really like that.
Okay.
So but if I had to pick an all-time favorite, it would be Moorings Bar, Krakatoa.
Okay. Big one. Do you believe in ghosts?
No, I don't. No, I don't really believe in that.
What do you think it is then?
I think it's some again. I think it's people trying to explain stuff that they can't explain. I think that's it. I think there's certain things that we'll never really be able to explain. As much as science tries, we're never, when it comes to the singularity and stuff, we're never going to be able to explain that. There are things that we're just not going to be able to explain. So there's always going to be
kind of energy.
Yeah, I mean, people always try to answer the unanswerable. It's human nature to try and find answers to things. And I think ghosts, people, there's been something weird has happened to somebody and they don't know what it is. And oh, it's ghosts. I don't know where. It'd be interesting to know the exact origin of the word ghost, because then maybe you can trace it back. So yeah, but I think
I'm
ghosts.
guessing that most places have something that was a ghost. They'll have a word. Most cultures will have something back to it. And Serpy's asking about dark beers. What's your favorite dark beer?
Oh, there's a few different things. I love, Doppelbox. I think, the Eyinger Celebrator would be one. We're talking about Dunkel's, the Augustiner. Dunkel's a very good one. Quadruples, I mean, I really like if we're talking about quadruples, I really quite like the La Trappe and the Rochefort 12. Is it Rochefort 10? Oh, no, or is it the 10? I forget exactly. The Rochefort with the highest number. I want to say the blue one,
Yeah.
which might be the 10, I think. So those would be, and then obviously Schlenkerla. I love anything Rauch. I love that. So those are probably my favourite dark beers. It's quite a few, so it's difficult to pick one because they're quite different.
Alien said.
I think it's highly likely. I don't know if it's really a case of believing in aliens, but I think it's extremely likely that there is life out there somewhere else, because the universe, we only see a very small portion of the universe. If you look at the calculations of how big the universe actually is, we only see a very, very tiny fraction of it, because we've only existed for 4.5 million years.
Yeah.
So it's like, we can only see a certain number of light years away, but the calculations, like simulations of the universe, tell us that it's like, I forget how many powers of 10 it is, but it's like the universe is an incomprehensibly big number, bigger size than we can see. So I think it's very, very likely that there is something out there. Yeah.
What about intelligent life, though?
What about what? Sorry.
Do you believe there's intelligent life, or there is life form out there? Like there's not some single cell organism just floating around in a pool of water, or there's actually civilization?
I think there will be, but it's you can look at the various. I mean, if you're interested in that sort of thing, one thing to read about is the Drake equation. So, it's based on our own existence, if you like. So, what is it that you need to make a planet have life? So, you need a star of a certain size. It has to have a certain length of life. Your planet has to be a certain distance away from the sun, so that you have from the star, so that you have liquid water or some kind of solvent, because chemical reactions work better in liquids. That's how we came about. You've got to have a high gravity planet so that it can take in asteroids and basically protect the planet that life's going to evolve on. You've also got to have a moon so that the planet's angled and you don't get atmospheric stripping from the star and stuff like this. I mean, these are all things that if you read at the Drake equation, these are all factors that were put into this Drake equation. And so we are one example where the Drake equation has been right. And this is like a theoretical, philosophical equation. It's not really a quantifiable equation, if that makes sense. You can't really quantify it. But I mean, with the number of stars you have in the universe, even in just the visible universe, never mind beyond the unobservable universe, there's got to be other things out there. It would be, to say that there's not aliens would just be, you'd be going against the maths, basically. There is, and it's just a case that we are one example out of potentially trillions of where the Drake equation has held out, if you like. So I think it's very, very likely, but the huge distances in space and things is that. But I think a lot of the fundamentals that we know about chemical reactions and things are stuff. And I mean, we're carbon-based life forms because of the number of bonds. Like, you've got chirality as well.
Yeah.
Concept of chirality. So this is another thing. Life is based on atoms that bond 4 times because it's just the right stability, and it's also just the right number of coordinations and things. So you could have silicon-based life, you could have that, and so on. But I mean, there's a lot of things you can think about. If you're thinking about life forming and stuff like this, you've got phosphorus. Our energy system in the body is based on phosphorus because the phosphorus-oxygen chemical bond, it's the most highly energetic chemical bond. And energy is moved by making and breaking chemical bonds. That's how it goes. So there's lots of weird things like this. And I think to say that we are the only place in the universe that this has happened, I think it's quite an unfounded thing to say. And I think a lot of people that argue that maybe just don't comprehend how big the universe actually is. I think that's one of the things.
So you wouldn't believe in the flat Earth theory or any of that? The Earth is flat.
Oh, I mean, it's no, it wouldn't be anything like that. But you've got all these theories and stuff out there that are just, some of them are just nuts. But no, the flat Earth, no. But I guess sorry, yeah. Do you believe in aliens? Probably yes. But I guess you would have to say yes. But I think it's very likely that we're not alone. I think it's very, very likely that we're not
alone. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one's an easy question, but simple. Drugs.
Never really had any desire to touch them. Never even smoked weed. I just never really wanted to. And I mean, maybe I would try like a space cake or something like that. But no, I mean, I've seen what these things, like I could, if I really wanted to, I actually could. I know we learned in synthetic chemistry how to make, cocaine and heroin and things like crystal meth and stuff like this. We learned how to synthesize all of these. We know it. Because we actually, one of our professors at Aberdeen, he used to go out into the woods and forage mushrooms and extract all of these, these hallucinogens and stuff from mushrooms and then play with them in reactions. So we know how to, I've still got a lot of that knowledge that I could, if I was given a lab, I could do it. But nah, never really interested in that.
So what about legalization then?
I think so, but I think at the same time, it depends on what. I think, yeah, legalization, but I think if you get heroin addicts and things like this, because they do cause chaos and things like this. I mean, I think the government should be able to order treatment orders from them, because in Scotland at least they get 30 days in the jail. That's not enough to get them clean. It's not enough to do that. They basically need to be taken into care for about 90 days to clean them, to get them clean. So in some ways, yes, I think decriminalizing it would be the thing, and I think there's steps already to do that. But I think with cannabis, I think it's legalizing it and taxing it would be far more productive than leaving it as an illegal drug. I don't see the point in that. Cocaine, in some ways, I would be against that because of the gangs and stuff like that. But at the same time, if it was to be manufactured, if you took the Portuguese attitude to it, you would lower a lot of the crime, and then you would lower a lot of the reliance on these South American gangs and stuff like that. So I think there's pros and cons to it. But I do think the government has to step in a bit more and be a bit more forceful in what they do with drug addicts, because it leads to a lot of violent crime.
Yeah, so more of make it legal with a supply, government supply kind of cannabis.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things is I think it's better to have drug treatment centres and things like that where people can be kind of weaned off it. But you get the problem is if you do things like that and you force people to take treatment, you get a lot of folks saying, "Oh, this is against human rights and stuff like this." But I mean, my mum's a social worker. My mum's a criminal justice social worker. So you get some really interesting stories from her about this. I mean, there was a guy I went to school with who died about 2 years ago, and another friend who didn't know him at school, is a police officer, and he knows this guy. And this guy used to take anything he could get his hands on, horse tranquilizers, all of that, everything. And one day he took something, he didn't know what it was, and he was dead. So that's 2 or 3 kids without their dad. It's just ridiculous. It's just nuts. It is just absolutely nuts. So I think
the social care kind of, you need to have a detox and then a social care wraparound to give people the support.
Exactly, yeah. And it's one of the things is I think I think that's one of the issues in, not so much in Scotland, but I think it's the British government have an attitude of not spending. It's low. In England essentially they want a low tax, low spend society. I don't think that works in Scotland, and especially having lived in Scandinavia, you can see there's a massive difference over there. So yeah, I think the job of a government should be to actually look after its people. So yeah, I think something like that, having a stronger social care and changing the attitude should be the goal, I would think. But you do have to remember that these things are very, very small. It's very small sectors of society, but it's played into a big thing by the newspapers and stuff like this. That is, you do have
Hi,
to
Sam,
remember.
how you doing?
Nice to see you, Sam. Yeah.
Do you think addiction is an illness then?
I think it is, but it's all about exposure and things like that. And if people don't have opportunities for jobs and things like that, if the economy isn't performing because it's not managed properly, that's when you're going to get more problems with drugs. And at the same time, and when it comes to prisons and things, there's not enough rehabilitation. It's just considered a punishment. It's like, well, no, you can't do that, because a lot of these people that commit crimes come from homes that are you just can't comprehend what goes on in there. So I think there needs to be quite a big overhaul of attitudes in that sense. It's got to be. You've got to have, they've got to manage the economy properly. They've got to do all of this kind of thing. So just, it's not an easy issue. It's not an easy issue. A lot of people just think it's black or white, and it really isn't. You've got to do, if you're going to tackle it, you've actually got to have you've got to look at various different areas. You have got to look at various different areas. You've got to, it's the whole investment thing. You've got to spend money to make money, if that makes sense. You've got to put money in to actually get the benefits out later, and a lot of the time is
it's more preventative than reactive.
Yeah, they're not thinking about. Yeah, it's reactive rather than proactive. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Oh, nice. My uncle. I can go out and visit my uncle again. Is there any news on when it'll be open to the EU, Sam? Any news on that? Need to go and visit. My uncle lives in the bush in Queensland, so I was tempted to go out there and chill for a couple of months.
I don't know, the numbers are rising again. I don't think we'll be letting in people.
It will do over winter though, that's the thing.
Last time you were rejected.
It was probably when it was probably when I when I was applied to another company to do some online tutoring stuff, and that was a couple of weeks back. It was actually a company in Singapore, and I got rejected from that. But it was probably my own fault because they called me up and wanted to arrange an interview the next day, and I was like, well, I can't do that. My schedule's too full. And I said to him, look, I'm not really impressed at the fact that, you have emailed me on the Monday saying we're going to organise an interview with you later in the week. Then you email me the day before expecting me to be free. You expect me to be free in 5 hours for an interview. It's like, no, not doing that. So I told them off for that. And then, they just said, right, we're not proceeding with your application. We don't like your attitude. I was just like, well, what do you expect? I was just like, what? So they phoned me up and said, oh, we want an interview with you 5 hours later. I was like, well, no, that can't happen. But the HR manager is only available for like 2 hours today and 2 hours. So I was like, well, that's not my problem. You need to manage your things better. You should have told me this on the Monday. If you told me on the Monday, then I can arrange it, but not 5 hours before.
No, I don't think many people could manage that.
Yeah, it's just. So that was rant over about that. I shouldn't. It's just I was just like. Ugh.
Okay.
Yeah.
First car and first mobile phone. If you drive, I don't know if you drive or.
I do drive, but I've never owned my own car.
The first one your parents. What were you driving your parents' car?
What did I drive?
You testing?
The first car that I drove, my dad had a big Citroen C5, the estate one. I think that was the first car that I drove on my own. But the very first car that I learned to drive in was an old Rover 200.
Okay.
I learned to drive in a Rover 200, and then I passed my test in a Ford Fiesta, I want to say. I think it was my instructor. She had a Ford Fiesta. And I think, it was a Citroen. I drove around in a Citroen C1 and a Citroen C5. Just whatever there, because the cars belonged to my dad's business, so I just drove those about, basically.
And first phone? Mobile phone.
Oh. I actually don't know what it was. A Triumph. I think it was this. I remember it being like a Triumph, and it was this one.
Was it a smartphone or was it just a normal?
Oh no! It was one. I think you could place. No, it wasn't a Triumph. It was like a Nokia
3310 or 3330.
I think it was a 3310. Yeah, because you could play Snake on it, the blue one.
Oh yeah, we're original Snake.
Yeah, blue one. Yeah, because my dad had the thing was because it was Snake 2. I remember you could play Snake 2. And my dad had the old one, the 3210, so it still had a different screen on it. I remember those.
Any pet peeves?
Like what do I hate?
Yeah, it's got to be something that ticks you off.
The thing that really there's a couple of things that fuck me off, and it's when it's when people don't know what's happening around them. They're just oblivious to what happens around them. And that's a big thing in Scandinavia. You notice a lot of people just don't pay attention to what's going on around them. Like if people are cycling, they're cycling along. They don't give you a signal when they're turning left. They don't look left and right when they come out. They just pull out. That annoys me because they just don't think to look. That's one thing. And the other one would be people changing their mind like at the last minute. That really annoys me because if I'm very much like if I say I'm going to do a plan, I stick to the plan. I make the plan, I stick to it. that's just me. So if people change their mind at the last minutes, that really does my head in. It really does. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, my uncle was saying that. My uncle lives very close to the New South Wales border. So yeah, they've been able to go wherever they want in Queensland, but they can't cross into New South Wales. So yeah.
And Risco Disco.
I write rampant grilling.
Okay, what's on your bucket list?
Is this just anything?
But there must be some special things you have on it.
It would probably just be travel. You know, it'd be travel things. Travel, and I'd like to own some properties and stuff like that. That's it. I want to be able, as I say, I just like moving around and seeing different places and stuff like this.
How many countries have you been to, if I may ask? How well traveled are you?
That's a good question. So, New Zealand, Australia, Taiwan, Japan, Korea. I don't know if you can count Hong Kong and Macau as separate countries. So, been there. So that's Asia and East. I've been to the UAE. So that's what, 6 or 7? A few countries. I've been around the States a lot. I've been around the States a hell of a lot. So I've been to like 27 or 28 states in America. I've been to Canada, just British Columbia. And then I've been to quite a few countries in Europe. So maybe somewhere in the region like 25, 26 countries. But I've been to America about 10, 12 times, something like that, because my dad just loved America. So when I was younger, we always used to go over there, rent a car, and just drive about. That was it. So in terms of bucket list, it would be, I want to go and see Latin America, but I want to learn a bit more Spanish to do that. So Latin America is on the bucket list. Particularly, I'd love to go and see the Galapagos Islands, where Darwin did a lot of his work. It would be cool to go and see, like Kilimanjaro and then Russia. I'd love to go and see Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I can do that quite easily now on the Swedish passport. So that's maybe something I'll look at fairly soon. But yeah, doing Moscow and St. Petersburg would be cool. Going across the whole of Russia would be awesome. There's some really unheard of places there. But I'd like to go and see, there's a space museum in Yuri Gagarin's hometown. So that would be cool. And then it'd be cool to go and see India as well, I think. Going to India and Singapore, those would be the other ones. Those would probably be my bucket list.
So there's Sam again.
Mm-hmm. Just have a good day at work.
Greatest strength and greatest weakness.
Probably my greatest strength would be just finding information, being able to find stuff, being able to plan it and get it done. But my greatest weakness sometimes can be focusing on one idea and deciding what to prioritize. Because it's one of my friends said to me, she's like, you get too many ideas. She's like, you need to focus, you need to choose one or two and focus on those at a time. So that's probably my greatest weakness, is focusing on, my greatest weakness is probably thinking of too much at the one time, probably overthinking, I would say. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. My greatest weakness is probably, overthinking and, losing focus on something because of that,
Okay. Steve, I don't think there's only one legend here, that is James.
Oh no, Thomas is a legend as well. Anyone Celtic is a legend. I'm just pouring my next Pepsi Max.
No problem.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm trying to do this left-handed. That's not a good idea.
No. Oh, yeah. Thanks for joining us, Steve, and everyone who's. Sorry if I'm not talking to people in chat. I'm really sorry. So, standing in front of your 16-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Not to be such a moody bastard to my mother. That would have been one. I was 16-year-old, because it's when I was 16 years old actually. That was when my two grandparents on my dad's side died, and we used to go and see them like every day. We saw that my sister and I, like, we used to go in and chill with them for an hour or two after school every day. So I think it was when I was 15, they both died quite quickly. And so at that point, I was just a moody bastard, depressed, moody little bastard. And I was quite, at that point, I was quite shitty to my mum. So that's what I would say, yeah. If I was 16 years old, I'd be like, don't be such an arse. Well, basically, that was an arsehole. I think I was just depressed little shit, basically, and just moody. That's what I would say. But otherwise, is there anything else?
Buy Google stock, buy Amazon stock.
Oh, I suppose that at the time that would be a good advice. But what I've invested in now is doing all right. So I just wish I'd known about that earlier, sort of thing. I don't really have any regrets. That's a good question. If I'm thinking about what regrets I have, not too many. Not really too many, to be honest. My only thing is, there's a few things I wish I'd known about earlier, and done them a wee bit earlier. But otherwise, that would be it, to be honest with you.
Okay. Last thing you Googled, if you use Google, I'm not sure what search engine.
I was looking at the last thing I would have Googled would have been apartments in Lund, looking at buying places. Yeah, so that's probably what it was. Yeah, Googling apartments in Lund and Malmö. So yeah.
Okay. Hardest goodbye you ever had?
That probably would have been with my grandfather, because this was when I was like 15, 16, 15, I want to say, yeah, 15. So it was, as I say, my two paternal grandparents died quite quickly. It would actually, in a couple of days, in about a week actually, it would be my grand's 100th birthday. So it was quite rare. I'd say it's quite rare to have, for someone in my age, because I'm 29, it was quite rare for someone in my age to have grandparents. Quite a few people would have had great grandparents, but it was quite rare for someone in my age to have grandparents who lived and fought in the war and things like this, in the Second World War. So they were very healthy up until their last few months. My gran died, and then my grandpa just couldn't deal with that. And that was very hard, because my grandpa was a Spitfire pilot, a fighter pilot. And, he'd done all of this, he'd been, by the time he was 23, 1920, yeah, so by the time he was about 23, 24, he'd been away, fought a war, and come home. And that was at the same age I was when I finished university for the first time. So, he did all of that, and then the thing that got him was he just couldn't hack losing his wife. And in fairness, my gran smoked for like 70 years. So to live to 87 with pretty much no health problems until she got pneumonia right at the end, that's pretty good going. But my grandpa never smoked in his life. He always stayed active and all of this. He could have lived well into his 90s, but he just couldn't deal with it. So that was probably basically, yeah. And that was something that was very, very hard to take. So yeah, no, that was a very, very hard thing to take. And then probably the other one would be between that and when I had to come back to Sweden after my little man was born. That was very hard as well. So yeah, but I don't really want to talk about that one.
Yeah. How would friends describe you in 3 words?
I don't know, just probably quite. I would say probably like, caring, spontaneous, and just mental. I would say that's probably that. I don't know. I'm not good at thinking how others would describe me, but that's probably it. I care a lot about my friends, and I'll bend over backwards to help people and stuff like that. But some of the ideas I get are just nuts, and I'm thinking like, why did I even think like why in this situation was that what came into my head? Just like, that's it. So yeah, care about my friends, mental, and spontaneous. Yeah, crazy and spontaneous, definitely.
Okay. Stranded in a desert island, who would you take? Non-family. Well, no family allowed.
I think I'm thinking probably my friend. There's a couple of people that would be candidates. If it was the beer tubing friends, it would be, I think, probably Thomas. I think Thomas and I would have good fun on a desert island. Yeah, that would be it. But then if it was out of my other friends, it would probably be my friend Ed, because Ed's got these really random things, and he's just the most chill motherfucker you'll ever meet. So it would probably be him, because he would find something like that.
What 3 items would you bring?
Well, you need a knife. You do need a knife if you're going to survive a desert island. Well, I don't know. I actually can't think of the other two.
What about food, water?
Oh no, you can. If you're on a deserted island, I'm assuming it's going to be tropical stuff like this.
No, it's off the west coast of Ireland. I'm sorry.
Off the west coast of Ireland. You probably, if you're going to survive, you probably need a fishing rod. Would have to eat fish then. So a knife, either a fishing rod or a fishing net, and I don't know. I really don't know the third one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Money was no object. What would you do all day?
I really don't know. I mean, I wouldn't think about it on individual days and stuff like that. I'd probably be like, I want to go and travel here. I would just kind of do as I felt at the time. I'd be like, right, I had an idea in my head the other day. Oh, I'd love to go to Bulgaria and just chill on the Black Sea beach. I would just, do stuff like that. That would be it. But money was the object what to do all day. I don't think I would change that much.
So you wouldn't try to end world hunger, world homelessness, build a load of houses, give free healthcare.
But I mean, if it's so I thought this was it meant like on a personal basis. But if you've got that amount of money, then if you've got that amount of money, then yeah, you need to go and you need to go and help, do stuff in Africa, like irrigate farms, give them electricity, do stuff like this. You want to do stuff like that. You want to take in train doctors in countries and things like this, train their police forces for security and all of that. You want to do things like this, actually help these countries build up their infrastructure and give people better lives.
Yeah,
want to do stuff like that.
Yeah, most people think that question on a personal, and they don't think it on a grand scheme of things.
Hmm.
Favorite movie, if you watch movies.
Oh, um, I like Tom. I like Tom Hanks. I like Tom Hanks as an
Okay.
actor. So probably, Apollo 13 is an old school favorite. I really like Apollo 13 because when I was younger, I was massively into the space program, massively into that. So I think I remember my mum and dad for one Christmas. I don't know how old I was, but I got a video of Apollo 13, and I probably wore. I don't know if I've still got it, but I wore that thing out. Absolutely wore that thing out. Just watching Apollo 13 over and over and over again. I loved that. Yeah.
Okay. Apollo 13, a bit different from everyone else.
Yeah.
Glass half empty or half full?
Probably half. I'd say that I'm a half full person. I always try to find the positives and try. I'm very much, if there's a problem, I'm right, okay, how do we fix that problem? So it's probably a half full kind of person. Always
Okay.
try to be positive, and always try to find. If you're in the shit, basically, I think it's always best to find, right, here's a point, here's the thing we can do to start moving things in the right direction. I always think that's the best mentality to have. So yeah, glass half full, we've got this, let's get this part done. Let's figure out, this is where we want to be, this is how we get.
Okay. Introvert or extrovert?
Oh, I'd say that, I'm quite, I kind of go through phases, to be honest. Like sometimes I just want to be like left the hell alone and just do my own thing. Like I like being I think probably I'm an introvert. Probably mainly I am an introvert, but I like to choose when to be an extrovert, and I don't feel uncomfortable being more extroverted and things. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer this one. Sorry about bringing up that. Craziest thing you done for love. That can be for family or personal. Yeah.
So I can't really think actually. Can we come back to that one? I'll have a wee think about that. I'll try and think because I've done some mental stuff, but it's not coming to me at the moment. But let's go back to that one at the end and see if I can answer that a bit
Okay.
later
Are
because
you any
I
good
just
at
can't think.
mimicking people's accents? So.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I've actually got quite a good. I can't mimic like an exact person, but I can do like quite a few um, geographical sort of things. Um, now that I have to think about doing it, I probably would struggle with it. But if we're talking about the Irish accent, my my colleague at the school I used to work in told me I had a very nice grandfather's Dublin accent. Reminded her of her little grandfather from Dublin. Um, so I had that. I was never good at the Northern Irish one though. It's my uncle used to do a very very good. He was in the Air Force at is it Aldergrove? Yeah, I think it's Aldergrove in Northern Ireland. So he used to do. He did the best Ian Paisley thing. Never, never. He used to just take the piss out of Ian Paisley all the time. So, but I was never that good at the Northern Irish accent. But I can do my some of the stuff I used to say when I would do the accents. I shouldn't repeat on live. I could do my George W. My fellow Americans. Today is the day that we will go to Iraq. I used to just go into a big monologue about all of this. So no, I was quite good at copying accents and things. Had a decent Russian one. I could do a sort of German and French one pretty well. Spanish, I never really got. Italian, I could do. Japanese, I could do now. My Australian one was all right when I was there. I don't know if I could repeat it now, but yeah, I could do American, I can do English, like a very posh English person, or I can do the Cockney accent very well for reasons that you probably know. It's flowing, all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's this Thomas lad on the YouTube. He's foreign. He's not from God's country. He's from Ireland, which is it's not Ireland. It's West Scotland, and he's not from. He doesn't speak the Queen's English anymore. And you can get to Ireland on the ferry, but it's not worth it. So I can do that one. I like that one. That's probably my favourite at the moment. I love winding my dad and my sister and that up with it. But yeah, no, quite decent at mimicking accents, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your mental health?
Pretty good, actually pretty solid for the most part. As I've kind of said a few times, like there's a lot of stuff with my little man just now, so I wouldn't say that I have, depression or anything like this, but obviously that's really emotionally charged and things. But generally speaking, I would say that I'm pretty solid otherwise. When it comes, my Achilles heel is my little son. But otherwise, I would say that I'm pretty solid. I suppose maybe I've got a little bit, when I do get a bit of anxiety, it's always about, I feel when I'm waiting for things to happen, and they usually happen, but it's just, I get quite impatient, and if I get a bit impatient, I get anxious. But I don't think that's any kind of form of illness. I think everybody gets like that, to be honest. I don't know, but I'd say pretty solid in a lot of ways. I've gone through periods. Yeah, I have gone through periods like everyone has, where I've really struggled, and a lot of that in recent times has been to do with the stuff with my little man and things like that. But no, I'd say I'm in a pretty. Other than that, I would say I'm in a pretty solid place.
Well, that's
Like
good.
Yeah, I mean, I do struggle. Yeah, I do struggle like seeing dads with their little kids and things like that. But I think considering what's happened, and I've got quite a few friends that have had things like this happen to them. I think I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Can only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Kebab pizza, Swedish kebab pizza. Yeah, the Swedish kebab pizza, or King Kong kebab pizza pommes, whatever you want. So pizza, the Swedish pizzas are very, very thin, so you get the doner meat on top of it. You get fries on it, and then you load the thing with garlic mayo. It's fucking amazing. So yeah, it would be that, I think. Or either that or falafel. My last meal.
Yeah.
Oh, I would like to die of blue cheese. Like really, really strong cheese. I would love to die of blue cheese.
Okay.
If I died of blue cheese, garlic, or soy sauce, I would consider that a good way to go out. I would say that's a glorious way to go in the eyes of Odin, Satan, or the flying spaghetti monster. Yeah.
What is knowledge, if you could explain it to me?
Knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how to answer that. I mean, knowledge is knowledge, isn't it? Knowledge is just, it's checking your facts, and checking your facts, knowing your shit. Basically, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that one. Knowledge.
No one has answered it yet.
Yeah.
Could I ask then, what is intelligence?
I think there's a lot of different types of intelligence. I mean, you get people that are kind of polymaths, you can call them, that have got knowledge about a lot of different things. But I think the most intelligent people are those that can, that can seek out information, figure out whether it's correct information, and then use that. I think that's one of the most, I think to me, that's the most important skill, is being able to find information and gather whether it's good information. Because you get, these days, you know, you get a lot of these people like anti-vaxxers and you know, some of the really kind of crazy religious people, if you like, that they just can't assess. They just and this is me as a teacher, maybe it sounds arrogant to say, but there's so many people out there that can't gather whether something is correct information or not. So for me, I don't know if that's really answering your question right enough, but for me, the most valuable skill and most valuable piece of intelligence is being able to look at a source of information and figure out, right, is this reliable? Is this correct information? You know?
Yeah, I think you've answered it pretty quickly. Most people don't answer it, but yeah. If you were a superhero, what superhero power would you have?
Just give me some wings. That's good. Just let me fly. Just let me fly about. Stopping time. You know, stopping time would be a good one as well. Actually.
Stopping time or freezing time?
Freezing time. Yeah. It's freezing time would be good, because then you could just like you control your friends and just move your friend to the other side of the room, and then for 1 second, and then be like, what? I think that would be fun. But yeah.
Super Fat Base has a question. Ever thought about giving up alcohol?
Not giving it up. I always think about how much I drink, because obviously alcohol, drinking every day and drinking, copious amounts isn't the best for you. But I wouldn't say I would consider giving it up completely. But I can go for days and stuff, because I just don't feel like it, and it doesn't bother me. If I could drink, if with these craft beers that we drink, if you could replicate those flavors without the alcohol, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care if you could do all these things without the alcohol. But the alcohol does give you a lot of the big, the big brown sugary flavors and stuff like that. A lot of that is because of the booze. So, yeah.
Not really. I haven't. I don't usually drink during the week. I might have one. It's usually during the weekend. So, if you could invite 4 people to a dinner party who are dead, who would it be? And you can go 4 celebrities, and then you can go 4 family members or friends. 4, so 2 separate groups.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you could share a meal with any 4 individuals, living or dead, who would they be? I mean, it would be cool. It would be cool to see my grandparents again. I would say that. That would be quite cool. So maybe that would take up 2 of the places.
IPA.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Paul. Paul. That's a good candidate. That's a good candidate as well, Paul. Just some of the random. If you want a good time, you have dinner with Paul. You do. That guy is like he's just the most lovably mental guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah, no, me and Paul have done an interview. We've chatted. He was at his way to work, drinking his coffee.
Oh, Paul is just mental, but he's like the best kind of mental. He and I are exactly 10 years apart. Exactly 10 years. He's born on the same day, 1981. I'm born in 1991. So yeah, that's quite a funny thing, I think. Yeah. So the other 4, I still need to name 2, don't I?
Yeah.
I don't know. Mikhail Gorbachev would be one. I think it'd be fascinating to talk to him.
We'll go back to family now first. Because you said your two grandparents, so two more
Yeah.
kind of family or friends. We'll do
Oh,
kind
so
of
well,
thing.
we do. I tell you what, can we do this in 2 stages then? Family and friends.
Yeah.
So we do like a
We'll break
family
them
one,
up.
then we'll do like
Yeah.
historical figures or whatever. All right. So just try to think if it was any 4 individuals living or dead. I think doing it, yeah. Family wise, it's a bit difficult to think about because obviously I see my mum and dad very often and all of this.
We're there
Um,
living, obviously.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be if it comes down to the sort of
Grandparents then, is it?
yeah, it'd just be my grand. I'd be just that
Okay.
family wise. It would just be it'd be nice to see my grandparents.
Okay. And so we'll go famous people then, or historical figures. So
Famous people. Mikhail Gorbachev would be one. Like I've always been fascinated by Russia. Like if you at school, one of my favorite subjects, as I say, I love information. I love like really random. I can piss away so much time on YouTube watching historical channels like Mark Felton and stuff like that. And he just if you watch one of his videos, it's about where did the German the one I watched the other day was like what are all the different classes of the Iron Cross and stuff like this? And there was another video, who were the foreign recipients of the German Iron Cross? I love little things like that. So, yeah, so Russia is always something that fascinated me. Mikhail Gorbachev, I think he was one of the ones who really, Mikhail Gorbachev would be one. Because he just was presided over Russia at like such an interesting time. The Apollo astronaut, I think Jim Lovell would have been a really interesting one as well because he never got to set foot on the moon, but he was one of the most experienced astronauts that NASA had. I think that would be interesting. He would be a really interesting one. Another one would be Robert the Bruce, the ancient Scottish king. He would be an interesting one. Probably like the most famous Scottish king. I think it'd be interesting to just see what he was like. And
Hitler, George Washington, Michael Jackson.
A fourth one's not really coming to mind, actually. That's a good point. Yeah, a fourth one isn't really coming to mind, actually. No, I can't think. I really can't. Yeah, yeah, Robert the Bruce. That's the channel name, Rampant Lion Reviews. The Rampant Lion was the old symbol of the King of Scots. So Robert the Bruce, like some of the stuff, because there's so many stories about this guy, and quite a lot of the crazy ones are just they know that they're true. So yeah, Robert the Bruce would be one. I'm trying to think if there's a fourth. I think something like Martin Luther King or maybe Obama. I think would be interesting to.
Obama's still alive, so.
Or Nelson Mandela. Well, Mandela then. It would be Mandela. I think would be an interesting one. Mandela, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pretty interesting party.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be one of your last questions. Absolute dream job.
Absolute dream job. I don't know. I think it could be. I think being the first. It would actually be really cool to be. I have in recent times actually considered coming back to Scotland a little bit more as a longer term sort of thing. I think it would be. I think it would be awesome to be. There's two things: either being an airline pilot for like Emirates or one of the big Middle Eastern airlines would be one. And I actually passed. I passed flight aptitude tests. Maybe, what was that? About 10 years ago or something. But I didn't. I went to. I didn't. like I just wasn't ready at that point, to be honest. I wasn't ready to just go and do that job, if that makes sense. I just wasn't ready to do that. Now I would be ready to do something like that. So yeah, I would actually, that's something I would maybe think about. But otherwise, I'd love to, it'd be very cool to be the First Minister of Scotland, I think, and sort of take Scotland forward, because I think that's one of the things that I find a little bit almost depressing, is that I see a lot of potential in Scotland. So obviously I've studied economics a lot, and you see the mentality of people and things like that. And I think Scotland's got a hell of a lot of potential, but it doesn't do anywhere near as well as it should. And I think it would be I would love to go and, be the minister for the economy and help. Yeah, either, be the minister for the economy, if you could be first minister, actually go and kind of rebuild the country, because I think I've had a lot of good experience from being around the world and seeing how other countries function. And of course, it's a weird thing, because whenever you talk to old people here, they say, "Oh, you don't live in Scotland, you don't know Scotland." It's like, so you're criticising me for going and getting knowledge from other countries and wanting to bring it back. To me, that doesn't make sense. But I think it would, to be the first minister, and I think I've got a good level of experience of different countries, how different system works. I think I've at least got I think I've got a lot of strong ideas. But this politics, politics can attract the worst and corrupt the best. So I don't know. Being first minister or an airline pilot, that's an interesting. Yeah, you go.
So what do you think about independent Scotland then?
As a concept, I'm 100% behind it. But when it comes to the models and stuff that have been proposed, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that I would criticise the SNP for. But I would be very, very difficult to. I don't think I would ever vote for the union. I don't think I would ever vote for it. There's very little that could convince me to vote for the union. And I mean, I would base that. I've lived in England, and I don't think I think there's big cultural differences between Scottish and English people. The most similar, I mean, Scotland and Ireland, I think we are very similar, and I just think our mentality and our outlook on the world is very different. And I would actually say, out of all the places I've experienced, I would say Scots are actually very similar to Danes. They're actually very, very similar to the Danish. So yeah, that would be one thing. And when it comes down to it as well, I mean, I think when I've studied economics quite a lot, if you make decisions at the local level, it just works better. It just works better. But economy is all about management. I think the UK has been they've been shockingly bad in their economic management. I mean, and they try and use, if you look at what the UK has done, and they've not managed the transitions of their economy well at all. And if they always say, "Oh, the Scottish economy is in such a bad state," and it's like, well, yous have been the one running it for 300 years. How's that? For me, that's the thing. Yeah, the SNP need to answer the currency. They need to get a proper plan out there for the currency. A currency peg, using a Scottish currency, and so on. They need to actually put these plans out there and do that. So I mean, I would criticise the pro-independence side a lot. Another thing would be for not attacking the Labour and Liberal Party as much, because they could really hammer them if they said, right, we'll give you, here's the Scottish Constitution. It's a social, liberal, democratic constitution. This is what we're giving you. So I would criticise the independence side a lot for their management, but I think as a concept, I would find it very, very, find it nigh impossible to vote for the UK. I'd find it nigh impossible to vote for the union. definitely. Not to get too political, obviously, but but we kind of did. So yeah.
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 What about your generation or your group of friends? Would they have a similar view?
Well, that's another thing. It's really there's a massive age divide in Scotland. I mean, literally, my experience of it is, and it sounds very sort of stereotypical, but this is genuinely what I found. There's two groups that really support the union, and that would be the old folk, the over 50. I don't know if it's right to say over 50s, but the
Okay.
over 60s definitely. But there's somewhere between 50 and 60 that you'd find it's very mixed. But I think the under 50s tend to be mostly in favour, and of course it gets stronger and stronger the younger you go, because you've got generations now that have grown up with a government in Edinburgh, and especially with the European issue, that's a big thing. So I think it will happen. I can tell you right now, it will happen, but it's just a case of when. And I mean, the UK government are hoping that it's going to go away, but the mentality's changed. There's a huge difference in mentality between the young people in Scotland and the old people in Scotland. Massive difference, massive difference, and it's a case of how long the union survives. It's I don't think it's an if anymore. I think it's a when. So,
Okay.
and the sooner, and I think economically speaking, I think the sooner the better. And economically and politically, the sooner the better, because then we can stop, fighting about it, get it done, start building the country. I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, James. Rampant line. You've been absolutely brilliant, honest, insightful. We'll have to chat some other time. Thanks to everyone who has watched us, or everyone who's going to watch in the replay. And yeah, we'll say good night, goodbye, and see everyone next time.
Yeah. No,
Cheers.
and thanks for inviting me on to do it. It's been good fun. Some interesting questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you
And
found them good. We'll say goodbye to everyone who's
it
watching.
was good. Yeah, no,
Um,
thanks to everyone who's watched. And yeah, it was good.
okay, hit this.